Mesolithic 1, Serbian female, sample I5234, the Ladies' Whirlpool Cave, Serbia. And I match 0.13%, apparently 60.57% closer match than other genome link users. So the samples from a Mesolithic Iron Gates hunter-gatherer female unearthed at the Padina Gospodinver Ladies Whirlpool archaeological site, which is located near the entrance of the Ladies Whirlpool cave entrance in the Danube Gorges area on the right bank of the Danube River. She was inhumated in a seated position. Her remains were dated to be from 9,500 to 6,200 BCE. Based on the archaeological context and radiocarbon dating of the other individuals in the cave, because radiocarbon dating failed for this individual, DNA extraction was performed from her petrous bone. Her mitochondrial DNA was identified to be U4A. The colonization of Europe by the Western hunter-gatherers started 14,000 years ago, and it coincides with the first period of warming. The bowling Alarod interstadial, I don't know what the hell that means. The newcomers likely arrived from a southeastern European or West Asian refugium, bringing along a small amount of Near Eastern genetic ancestry and admixing partially with the late Paleolithic European population. On the PCA, the Iron Gates hunter-gatherers are placed between the Romanian hunter-gatherers and the Koros hunter-gatherers, with almost 100% Western hunter-gatherer ancestry. However, they possess a small amount of Caucasian hunter-gatherer and Eastern hunter-gatherer ancestry. Similarly, they are situated a little further from the Latvian hunter-gatherers and the Ukrainian Neolithic population, although the latter ones have significantly more Eastern hunter-gatherer ancestry. The Mesolithic hunter-gatherers of Europe differed phenotypically from both Neolithic and present-day European populations. They had ancestral dark variants for hair and skin pigmentation genes, although they possessed the OCA2 and HERC2 derivative alleles for blue eye colour, which was thus common among Western hunter-gatherers. The Western hunter-gatherers showed reduced diversity in comparison with the Neolithic farmers and present-day European population. It's also believed that Western hunter-gatherers had a stronger bottleneck than the Eastern hunter-gatherers, consequently a lower genetic diversity. Surprisingly, both Mesolithic and Neolithic individuals from the Iron Gates, similar to the Eastern hunter-gatherers, Latvian hunter-gatherers and Scandinavian hunter-gatherers, had a higher frequency of derivative alleles for SLC24A5, which affects lighter skin pigmentation. Another interesting fact is that the Iron Gates hunter-gatherers had a low frequency of blue eye pigmentation, determining derivate allele. There was likely a geographical variation and balancing selection determining light eye and skin colour. In the northeast, the preference for lighter pigmentation was more preferred than in the southwest of Europe. Her mitochondrial haplogroup, the U4A, was widespread in the Mesolithic Serbian and Karelian populations, in Neolithic Ukraine, and in the Chalcolithic Bulgaria. Her world. The Padina settlement. The locality of Padina, where she was found, was a steep rocky terrace nestled inside the narrow westmost dramatic cliffs of the Iron Gates Gorge. She lived in a tight-knit village of hunter-gatherers built directly on top of the sloped cliffs. They shared the landscape with nearby Lepensky Ver, which later produced the world-famous stone sculptures of human fish hybrids. A hard life. Anthropological studies of the Iron Gate skeleton shows a robust, tall, muscular population. However, they suffered heavily from joint stress due to navigating the treacherous rocky cliffs and paddling against powerful river whirlpools. So the connection in our genetics with the samples, mtDNA and my own, the J1C3 line, is that we are distant genetic cousins who share a single common maternal ancestor from tens of thousands of years ago. I just find it fascinating. They represent two entirely different branches of the human family tree that took radically different paths through history. The common grandmother. Around 56,000 to 60,000 years ago, a woman lived in Southwest Asia or the Near East who carried a specific genetic mutation known as haplogroup R. Every person carrying U4A or G1C3 today is a direct maternal descendant of this single woman. Her daughters accumulated different mutations over generations. One branch mutated into the U lineage, while a completely separate branch mutated into the JT lineage, which later split into J and T. While the specific item-by-item archaeological field notes for sample I5234 are largely restricted to academic excavation catalogues, we know exactly what she was buried with based on the strict Mesolithic Iron Gates burial customs documented at the Padina site. Unlike later Bronze or Iron Age elites who were buried with hoardings of gold and metal, Mesolithic hunter-gatherer women were buried with highly symbolic items of daily survival, animal components, and body ornaments. At Padina, a woman of her stature and era was typically laid to rest with the following items: pierced shell jewelry and beads, the artifacts small beads crafted from the shells of river snails or marine snails. These were intricately pierced and sewn into clothing, headbands, or worn as necklaces. Marine shells are especially significant. They prove that her tight-knit community participated in extensive long-distance trade networks, reaching all the way to the Mediterranean or Black Sea coasts. Animal teeth and bone trophies. Pierced teeth from red deer, wild boar, or wolves alongside modified bone pendants. In her foraging culture, animal teeth functioned as deeply personal status symbols, protective amulets, or markers of identity within the clan. Exquisitely carved bone fishhooks, harpoon tips, and specialized flint blades or scrapers. Because the Danube River, I can't speak, was the absolute lifeblood of the Padina settlement. Tools for catching giant sturgeon and catfish were sacred. Placing these tools in the grave suggests her people believed she would need to continue fishing and providing for herself in the afterlife. Red ochre pigment, traces of red ochre sprinkled directly over her skeletal remains or scattered across the grave floor. Red ochre was a universal prehistoric symbol for lifeblood and rebirth. It was used throughout the Iron Gates Gorge to symbolically warm the deceased or prepare their spirit for the next realm. Ritual stone and food offerings, select cuts of meat indicated by animal bone fragments left in the soil, and unique unworked river stones placed near the skull or feet. These acted as final provisions for her spiritual journey, accompanied by stones chosen directly from the dramatic whirlpools she navigated during her lifetime. So next up on my DNA journey, Mesolithic 1, ancient Anatolian farmer. Konya Plain, Turkey. I match 0.08%. And Genome Link says I'm genetically closer to this sample than 49.86% of other Genome Link users.